Hi guys, what's up? It's Allie. Welcome to the Powerhouse Podcast. This week we're going to be talking about why are you lying on your pageant paperwork? Really excited to jump in here today. Let's get into it. Welcome to the Powerhouse Podcast, hosted by expert coaches Megan Swanson Rhodes, former Miss Nebraska and Miss Nebraska USA, and Allie Swanson Mancuso, also former Miss Nebraska and Mrs. Nebraska United States. Every Tuesday, we bring you a life-changing, challenging, and activating episode to help high-achieving women win their pageants, massively transform their mindsets, and dominate all aspects of life, both inside and outside of pageantry. Allie and Megan are international coaches of high-achieving women in all 50 states and beyond, and live to see women conquer their dreams. If you are not already a part of our Powerhouse Club, join the fastest growing group of winning pageant queens on the planet, linked in the show notes each week. Now, let's get on to this week's episode. Well, hello and welcome everybody to this week's episode of the Powerhouse Podcast. I'm Allie Mancuso, and this week we're going to be talking about why are you lying on your pageant paperwork? Now, you might be like, Allie, who lies on their pageant paperwork? That's a little strong of a headline. Well, it is. And in all honesty, I titled it that for a little bit of clickbait. Don't shoot the messenger. But I did that on purpose because there's 3 principles that I really want to articulate to you guys today. And I have this example where I've attributed a name to each type of what I'm calling liar for this paperwork example today. And the question that I want you to reflect on as we're diving into this today is, do you understand the basic principles of good paperwork? Well, if you don't, then I'm going to be so bold in saying that it's actually because you're lying to yourself, lying to others, or lying to the judges. And that's where I get the, why are you lying on your paperwork? Well, it's because you're probably doing one of those 3 things if you're not being successful in your interview and you don't honestly have good paperwork, okay? And it's really important that you know yourself, know your platform, and what the judges are looking for. And that's really the foundation of this podcast today. We have lots of other podcasts on frameworks of paperwork or how to control an interview, how to prepare yourself mentally. And I encourage you to go back and listen to those as well as this one. But this specific podcast, I'm going to talk about 3 types of pageant competitors, okay? 3 clients, so to speak, that I have seen in the past, and I'm going to categorize them, and maybe you can identify as one of these people along this journey. And my hope is that it helps you out immensely today. Okay, so I know lying is pretty strong verbiage. You're probably thinking, oh, I don't lie on my paperwork. I might embellish. I might make myself sound really, really cool. Or maybe you have the opposite effect here. Maybe you really have a hard time bragging on yourself and being authentic on your paperwork, or even listing your accomplishments because you don't want to seem prideful. So that's also one of these types that I'm talking about here today. So lying is strong verbiage, but what I'm about to describe, my point in making that statement is that there is more for you to do to enhance your paperwork than what you are currently doing. And one of these types is probably going to connect with you. And by saying that, it's you're either lying to yourself, lying to others, or lying to the judges. And the reasoning behind that is everybody has an element of unorganization when it comes to their pageant prep. You all have a natural bent for what you like to do, what you don't like to do. And this plays into that as well. So what is pageant paperwork? Pageant paperwork is you listing out your accomplishments, your platform, sharing your heart behind your mission, and really what you want to do as the title holder and how you want to connect with the judges. So the format of paperwork changes division to division and different systems to different systems, but the underlying thread is that you have to be able to connect with the person you're talking to. And the strategic side of me wants you to not leave points on the table as well. So we'll get into it with these 3 different types, okay? So why do people fabricate lies in life, and how does this translate to the paperwork that we submit for pageantry? Well, there's 3 types of people. The first one I'm going to call wishful thinking Wendy. Okay, sorry if your name is Wendy. I just picked a random name that went with my alliteration here, okay? This is the girl that lives in her own wonderland of ideas, but never schedules time to do the things she dreams of doing. Okay, I know that somebody listening to this, you're like, well, that is my natural bent. That is me. Okay, it's the person who gets stuck in their thoughts a lot. They have a hard time taking quick action. Maybe you are naturally lazy or sluggish, and it takes a lot of mental fortitude to get you to do something that you really want to do. And maybe you do have good intentions. You make lists, or maybe you have all these things that you think you've thought of in your brain of, I know I need to do these things for my pageant prep or to enhance my platform, but I don't actually end up doing those things. Okay? Why? It's because this type of individual most of the time lives in fear of failure, so they don't even try from the beginning. They get so stuck in their thought life and into the dream world or the wonder, right? Where they don't know how to put that plan into action. And a lot of times that's because she has this false assumption that she also has done enough to win already, when in reality, there are others that are working harder, they're achieving more, and they're having a greater impact around them. So when this individual gets to the competition and does not win an interview or doesn't have the interview that she wants with the judges, she's left confused and she's left in this state of comparison. The result of this type of individual in your paperwork is that your paperwork is weak and fluffy. It lacks power. And to be honest, a judge is going to make a judgment call before she even enters the room that she's not strong enough to win. Now, I know a lot of that is very direct language, but in my experience, it's very, very true. So there's a lot of different stigmas in there, and you might be picking out some of those and not all of those. That's okay. I tried to craft what I have seen as issues that I've worked with clients on regarding paperwork and little bottlenecks that they have in their life or hiccups where they really need coaching to achieve that next level thinking because they don't do it naturally. And it's important to get to that why. If you know what needs to get done, but you're not doing it, are you doing it because you're afraid of failing? Are you doing it because you don't realize what it actually takes to win? And you're just stuck in this pipe dream of, yeah, it'd be nice to win the title, but if I ask myself honestly, I don't really want to work that hard to get it. So if it happens, great. If it doesn't happen, great. I'm still fine with it. That's not a hungry individual to get the title. That's a totally different mindset. That's not a winner's mindset, okay? But the first example of the person who lives in a wonderland of ideas but has a hard time taking action, that's somebody who might just need to have an actual plan, an organized plan, have accountability in their life, someone to follow up with you to make sure that you are going to the appearances, beefing up your platform as needed, meeting deadlines. If you're not a person who does that naturally, maybe you're a more creative person and it's hard for you to be organized. Now, I'm not asking everybody to be, this A-type, super structured individual, because maybe you're more adventurous and that's beautiful too. But in order to combat this wishful thinking Wendy persona, you need to have some structure. And in that structure will come power because you'll have the experiences to back up what you want to say in your interview. You'll be able to take action in your life. And the more at-bats you get, the more experiences you have, the more impactful your paperwork's going to be. Therefore, your interview is going to be more impactful because you have more things to share about. And it's not about more, which we'll get into with the next archetype here. But I want you guys to meditate on, do I have a realistic perspective of what it takes to win this title? Am I making excuses for myself that actually coaches myself out of taking action in my life, where I know I need to go to the gym, I know I need to eat right, I know I need to practice my interview, but I'm not? Why am I not doing that? Am I blaming it because I'm busy? Am I blaming it on X, whatever life factor that comes up? Everybody has 24 hours in a day, but some people make it work and some people don't. Why is that? Because of exactly what I'm talking about, okay? And whether or not you need to go back and listen to our organizing podcasts of our planners or how to organize your day, time chunking, all of that. If you're a wishful thinking Wendy, my recommendation would be to go listen to those and take that to heart and really try and implement some level of organization and let that help you take action in your life. So it's not just a pipe dream. It becomes your reality because you're taking the steps to get there. Okay? So that was number 1, wishful thinking Wendy, who lies to herself because she doesn't actually know what it takes to have good paperwork and have a good interview. Number 2 is achievements only Aubrey. Okay? And again, sorry if your name is Aubrey. I was just trying to make an alliteration with the letter A without using my name, to be honest, because I've done that in the past. This type of individual has no emotion in her paperwork. Okay? No emotion in the paperwork. Limited why means no connection to a judge. And this is something that I had to learn the hard way because I naturally am accomplishments driven. I'm naturally X's and O's, black and white. More is better, right? That's my natural bent. And a result in this type of individual is the paperwork can come across too powerful, too intimidating, too much. And the vibe that a judge gets is, I don't know if I want to be her friend. I'm impressed by her, right? But I don't know if I vibe with her. I don't know if I like her, right? That warmth is missing. And if I'm throwing out some terminology of power, presence, and warmth, I'm going to talk about this next week on our next podcast. So make sure you tune in to our power, presence, and warmth training on that triangle. It's also an interview framework, and you can also translate this to on stage as well. So it's really, really tangible for all aspects of pageantry. And I'm just going to kind of brush the surface with that this week. Next week will be a full training on that, so stay tuned. But this type of individual has too much power. If you tap only into accomplishments, it actually is dry to a judge. And I mean that word by, I don't know if I want to be her friend. I don't know if I actually trust them. And that is a hard place to be, right? You've worked with. Maybe that's organizations I've partnered with. If you can't answer those questions, you are a poorly planning poly. Because your mind and not 2 years old of a story and something for the judges to ask you about. So being forward thinking is really important here. And that's why my type of lying, I'm doing air quotes for those of you just listening to this, is lying to others. Because you are telling others that you're ready and you're telling others that, you've done this work, but you're missing out on what's the most relevant to the conversation, which is a lot of times what's the most recent. And not saying you can't have cool experiences to pull from, a year before, 2 years before, whatever. It's not about the timing. But my point is, don't just meet a deadline to meet a deadline. Really think through, okay, what are my most impactful stories? Does one of these stories come after my paperwork deadline? And if it does, think ahead so you're not lying on your paperwork and saying something that's not actually going to happen or whatever. But if there is an event that you care about that is going to be impressive, that is going to be a powerful story where you're going to be able to connect and show that power, presence, and warmth, then put it on that paperwork. Don't leave points on the table and stick to your stories that are, a year old or more, right? And don't just copy an old paperwork just because it worked for you in the past. You should have life experiences leading up to the pageant. And if you don't, and your stories are old, and a judge asks you questions of what's the most recent experience you have been a part of and tell me about it, and your story is 8 months ago, a year ago, that's going to tell me about you, that you don't actually care about what we're doing in the now. You don't care about this conversation, and you're not really acting like the role that you want. And that's a really important thing to come to terms with as well, because you are essentially lying to the judges saying, I'm ready for this job, when you're actually not. Okay? So think about those 3 kind of archetypes here. Think about which one you relate to the most and what the problem of that archetype had. So if it was lying to the self, lying to the judges, lying to others, and how can you improve your current paperwork to overcome that and show your power, presence, and warmth in your interview? And luckily, next week, we're going to talk about that, the power, presence, and warmth triangle, and really bring this full circle. So make sure you tune in next week, and I'll talk about taking these principles And when you're actually in your interview, how to tap in to that other part of that triangle that you don't normally or naturally do. So we're all part of that kind of triad really comfortably in one area, sometimes two. But the third one, we're not. And that's what we're going to talk about next week and kind of bring this topic full circle, guys. Okay. So in a nutshell, it's really important to know where you're at with your paperwork and where you're at with yourself. Where are your blind spots? And a lot of times we can't see our own blind spots. And that's why it's so important to have a coach. It's why it's so important to have other people read your paperwork and be able to ask the question, hey, what's missing here? What can I do better? What questions would you ask me if you were a judge? Not even just your family, but get people who are business professionals. There's so much power in that because a lot of times that'll be indicative of an actual pageant interview, especially if there's a novice judge on your board. Okay, guys, that's all I have for you today. Thanks so much for listening or watching to the Powerhouse Podcast. My name's Allie, and I will see you next week. Bye. Hey guys, what's up? It's Coach Allie. Guess what? You are listening to this podcast on the back half of our winter mastermind. We just had it a couple weeks ago, and if you are like, dang it, I missed it. Well, guess what? We have another opportunity for you for our live upcoming mastermind event. It is May 12th through 14th, that weekend here in Omaha, Nebraska. You might be like, what the heck is in Omaha? Listen, Omaha is a gem of the Midwest. And even if you don't like where it's at, it's an opportunity to meet women all across the country, challenge yourself, grow, and really polish right before your upcoming pageant. Go to mastermind.powerhousepageantry.com for more information. Again, that's mastermind.powerhousepageantry.com. We would love to have you. We have limited spots for this upcoming mastermind, and I think we only have 15 or so left. So be a woman that takes action. Go to mastermind.powerhousepageantry.com. Secure your spot today. Hey guys, it's Coach Allie. Thank you so much for listening to the Powerhouse Podcast. Megan and I absolutely love our listener base, and we couldn't do what we do without you guys. If you stayed all the way till this part of the podcast, there's a couple things that I want to make sure that you know. We are constantly updating our resources to be the latest, greatest trainings and stay really up to date with trends. So if you want to figure out how to save $700 overall on pageant coaching, we have a service called the Powerhouse Club, among some other things. And to be honest, it is the best coaching in the world. Obviously, I'm a little bit biased, but we have the best community with amazing women from every single state in the United States in our community. And we just love pouring into you guys. So if you want to figure out how to save $700 overall, like I said, be a part of the best coaching service in the world, click the link below. We would love to assist you. See you next week, guys.